Hello everyone, I'm Dan and we're going to talk today about sleep ecologies, tools for Snoozy Autoethnography. So just a little bit of background, I run something called the Imaginaries Lab, and we do research through design. We develop methods to help people understand in new ways, help people imagine new ways of living, and we kind of make imaginaries tangible through designing new tools. And some of the different areas we've looked at through this kind of methods include things like personal development, interdisciplinarity, mental health, and kind of more speculative design fiction around climate futures. We developed new types of more qualitative interfaces for things like energy use. We also do a lot of work on kind of tools for facilitation and idea generation, so on things like new metaphors, and even things like most recently we've been developing methods around like thinking through screenwriting as part of a kind of participatory featuring kind of method. So what we're going to talk about today is around sleep and well-being, and this is a project in collaboration with Philips Design. So our basic research question was, how could we enable people to explore patterns in their own sleep, energy and wellness autoethnographically through both qualitative and quantitative data? And so this is the context of this. This is an undergraduate design studio class. The 5 students had 8 weeks to work on this. And the idea is that you treat kind of environments, both physical and digital, and the sort of contextual aspects of people's lives beyond sleep itself as kind of connected part of this kind of ecology idea. And we had a focus on student life and sort of using autoethnography and sort of more playful self-experimentation, if you like, within that context. Initial phase of work was almost investigating what areas to investigate, which things seem important in these kind of ecologies around sleep. And so each of the students' projects took a different approach, using technology in different ways. Some of them more around sensor data or doing different things with quantitative data. Others were more around the sort of qualitative aspects or focusing on the physical environment or digital environment or a combination of both. So Jackie now is going to introduce his project.
What activities do you do before you go to bed that gets you in the mood, gets you ready for a night's rest? And for me, this is kind of stemmed from personal experience of like when I do my full skincare routine or when I kind of clean up and tidy up the loose, like the messy things in my room. So each person who has this kind of kit that I created would kind of tally up the activities that they'd be doing every night before they go to bed. We worked with Philips right on this project. And so I tried to see if I could integrate the kit into their sleep app, and it collected sleep data using this headband that kind of had sensors. So I was interested to see, can we like incorporate the pre-sleep data into the whole thing so you get a more holistic view of your night's rest. I custom ordered all these Legos in different colors and shapes so that would fit perfectly within my system of like points. Brushing your teeth or like turning off the lights would be like a 1-point activity. But if you did things that were more mindful and intentional about putting yourself in a good place before bedtime, that would be something like reading a chapter in a book or something like that, or maybe doing your like full 12-step skincare routine. And those would be like 3 or 4-point activities. So an obvious question is like, why couldn't this entire thing be digital? And some of the feedback that I received from the people who I tested this with was like, oh, having the physical object there, by my bed or on the living room table was really helpful and reminded me to actually like think about this and participate. And I think actually recently with COVID-19, I think that this is also like an interesting thing to think about. It's almost like the opposite now. I think a lot of people are talking about like your getting up routine, right? But depending on whether or not they take a shower before 12 p.m., that kind of set the tone and the mood for like the whole day of like, oh, am I going to be productive today?
That I was looking at using sleep data either just showed you the numbers in the hopes that you would say, oh, wow, I'm really not sleeping. I should sleep more. I wanted to look into how can I take this data and in creating a digital experiential landscape. So giving people something that's very immersive and very rich in detail that reflects the quality of how they're sleeping. So I was interested in looking at ways that I could nudge my peers or anyone really to reconsider their sleep and have it be something that they were thinking about and give them a new way to evaluate their sleeping pattern. So what I ended up making was called the Forest of Sleep. You were able to generate a forest based on your sleep data, and say you slept super well, you would have really normal looking trees. You would get this beautiful forest, but with trees that look very normal. And if you weren't sleeping well, the trees would contort themselves. They would be skinnier. The branches would be in strange places. Lots of little visual cues to sort of prompt you into thinking like, why do they look like that? I was using a Fitbit. I had my friends use like a cheap Fitbit I had. Even if they weren't checking it, it was still growing and it was still there. Not only are you being presented with your sleep habits, but you're also able to do a little bit of investigative work on your own.
It is my pleasure to introduce you to my project, Focus Watch, which is a smartwatch watch face that tracks your focus rate to guide you to a better sleep schedule. The idea came to me because I noticed that a lot of college students are pulling a lot of all-nighters oftentimes, but they're not actually focused when they're doing the all-nighters. They're very distracted. So I did a little research on myself and measured how much I was focusing during my own all-nighter from 12 to 9 a.m. Turns out I was only focusing for 1 hour and 22 minutes. Rest of the times I was on social media or doing something else. So I thought, rather than pulling an all-nighter, getting no sleep, and getting the work done, why don't I get 7 hours of sleep and do the same amount of work in the morning within 2.3 hours? So the idea came to me that, if I could measure my focus watch with Google Chrome history, I could feed that information to my smartwatch so it could remind me when I'm losing focus. So I came up with a few designs that could mimic my mental state. So it would measure my focus rate, and the visuals would replicate how I'm focusing, and it would nudge me to go to either sleep or refocus based on my state. Thank you.
I became interested in time and how that related to sleep, particularly sleep planning. And the way I did that is I developed a couple of probes to give to fellow students that had a spinning acrylic disc. You can see on the bottom left hand, there's a potentiometer that allowed them to adjust the rate. And then they used dry erase markers to annotate however they wanted to. And I left it open-ended because actually what I was more curious about is how they would use these ambiguous tools. The only thing I told them was this might be a model of time, and then I showed them how to use it. So when I got these back, I had the little notebooks that had journal entries as well as the annotations on there. What was most interesting coming out of this research is that it created a moment for them to experience time in a more expansive way, that by interacting with these devices, that they felt like they were chilling out or relaxing or giving themselves permission to experience time that wasn't rushed or stressed. The next phase of the project, an aesthetic model on the wall of what this might look like in a home or an office environment, and then on the tabletop was a working model, and the idea was a rotating disc created an audio sound to remind you to attend to something. You could set it for a week, a month, or a whole season to just daily remind you at a certain time. And what time it was going to remind you and what it was reminding you of was entirely up to the person using it. During our show, one of the things that people reflected on is it feeling like there wasn't really ways to remind ourselves in a non-invasive way of daily practices that we want to attend to. Walsh was investigating sleeping habit among college students, particularly when they were sleeping in non-traditional spaces, and how he might design artifacts that would support them in those choices. Because he didn't see this as a problem necessarily to be fixed. He actually wanted to support people in their choices to sleep where they found themselves.
As part of his research, CJ took photos of them sleeping in unconventional places, and then they annotated those photos to talk about why they chose their particular places, what parts of their body experienced discomfort, versus what about those places that they'd chosen to nap were providing comfort and were providing support.
He also talked about the social aspects of napping in these spaces. Do I feel comfortable? Am I going to get worried that my stuff's going to be stolen? Or do I feel embarrassed to be napping here?
And then the next phase, he provided materials for people to augment their chosen napping spaces, either to make themselves physically more comfortable or possibly socially more comfortable. And I think that part of what he was reflecting on in his project was exactly what you said, Jackie, the combination of this physical but also social element of sleeping in non-traditional places. So coming out of these projects and out of the paper, we think there's a lot of really interesting opportunity for self-inquiry tools as a direction for research through design, but also designers working together as a cohort to address different aspects of a problem space. And how these combined autoethnographic probes or suites of probes might work together.
There are a number of other insights and issues that arose as well, but we have more details of those in the paper. Thank you.
Thanks.